Now I continue today in Ecclesiastes chapter number 4. I left the radio yesterday. We had made it down through the middle of verse number 4. Solomon says, "Again I considered all travail and every right work. For this a man is envied of his neighbor. This is also vanity and vexation of spirit." When I left the radio yesterday, I was pointed out the fact that this is an extremely unusual verse, a very unusual verse, and how am I to explain this or to give some understanding concerning this statement? "And every right work, that for this a man is envied of his neighbor. This is also vanity and vexation of spirit." Now we read that over and over in the book of Ecclesiastes. Vanity, vanity, vanity. We also read the matter of vexation of spirit. We read that over and over. Verse number 4, the whole of the verse, and I touched on this yesterday, and I feel like I need to step back for just a moment to set the context, to kind of get a running go into the balance of verse number 4. "Again I considered all travail and every right work." The matter of travail, I pointed out yesterday, is labor. Man's labor, man's work. I've been laboring with the radio for 40 years. I have been working with the Bright Spot Hour for 40 years. I've had the Bright Spot Hour under my direction for the last 28 years. And I've come to the radio mic in season, out of season. I've come when I have had to bring material I've dealt with before, and I've come to this radio mic when I was thrilled and excited to have seen some new light on a particular verse that I had not seen before. I preached at this radio mic in season and out of season. In my revival work up and down the highways, in season and out of season. And I've sold real estate for 30 years to help pay the bills. The Bright Spot Hour has been the beneficiary of that, and because I give of that back into the work of the radio to help us maintain our network. But I said all that to say this: the new eventually wears off everything. A new job soon becomes an old job. A new dress or a new pair of shoes or a new suit of clothes eventually become an old shirt or dress or suit of clothes. A new automobile eventually becomes an old automobile. The new wears off of that. And the enthusiasm at some point is going to go away. And there will have to be something there that is deeper and bigger and better established than just youthful enthusiasm. You're going to have something there to carry you in the lean times, and that's where the word travail comes in. Work over time becomes travail. The difference between those that are diligent in society and those that are not. The diligent in society are not constantly going from one thing to another, to another, to another, but the individuals that will get in and stay with it, those that will get started and they'll continue right on with the work. I mean, when it becomes travail, when the shine has tarnished, they stay right with the work. And I mean, they're as faithful and diligent as they can be. Again, I considered all travail those that have actually stayed with the work, and those that have stayed with the requirements, and those that have stayed with the things that are demanded. Week after week, year after year, month after month, in season, out of season, they've been totally and entirely faithful. I have seen I considered all travail and every right work. Now, in the news media, if it bleeds, it leads. You know, the only thing that they're going to see for the first 5 minutes on the news, especially your local news, is car wrecks, people that were killed, shootings, arrests, all kind of things like that. The worst, the first 5 minutes on the news or the first 10 minutes on the news is nothing but bad news. And you eventually get the idea that nobody is doing right. I mean, the whole world is gone crazy into sin. There's nobody that is doing right or striving to do those things that are right. Here Solomon said, I considered all travail in every right work. Those individuals that were given to right work. And this area of right works, Solomon goes on to say that for this a man is envied of his neighbor. When a man gives himself to consistency, when a man gives himself to not changing, he's not given to change, he's not a double-minded man. He finds out what he can do, he finds out what God wants him to do, and he gets busy doing what he can do, and he gets busy laboring in the field he can labor in, and serving in the capacity that he can serve in. And he's entirely faithful to that. I mean, he just gives himself to it, and he's totally faithful to the work that God has laid before him, and that will generate the envy of men. The Bright Spot Hour is 80 years old this year. And I've been here 28 years. My grandfather, with the total work of the Bright Spot Hour for 40 years, half the life of the Bright Spot Hour, I have been affiliated with the broadcast in some capacity or another. I spoke the first time on the Bright Spot Hour 40 years ago. Half of the life of the Bright Spot Hour, my voice has been a part of this broadcast. I have been laboring here long enough that the shine tarnished a long time ago. The greatest door God has ever allowed me to have is this door I'm occupying right now. The greatest thrill of my life is doing what I'm doing this very moment, standing before the Bright Spot Hour audience and standing before this radio mic. But when I come to this radio mic, it is truly a labor of love, but it is a labor. And I plead and I read and I study and I ask God, please help me and enable me to be a testimony. Help me to edify the people that are tuning here to listen. Help me not to bore them. Help me not to waste their time. I don't rerun programs. Every broadcast you hear is recorded for the Bright Spot Hour, and it'd be easy. I have almost 30-year archive of messages I've brought over the years. I could spend the rest of my life just rerunning programs that I brought before. But this is a right work, R-I-G-H-T. This is a right work. It is a good work, and it is a work that is worthy of my dedication and a work worthy of my discipline to prepare messages and to come to the radio mic and to go through the Bible on the Bright Spot Hour right along with you. I'm edified. I certainly hope that you are edified. I'm strengthened. I hope that you are strengthened. It is this matter of a right work. You working on your job for 40 years. One of my neighbors talked to me the other day, and she commented that she has been working at her place of employment more than 40 years. She has been on the job in her place of employment. That's worthwhile. That is worthy of notice. Others of you have went to work for a company and worked your whole working career there and retired, and you retired, you only worked at one place your whole working career. You only worked at one place. They hired you on as a young man, you stayed there through your prime, worked on into your older years, and then retired out, and your whole work was in the same place. That is a right work. And for that, his neighbors, he is envied of his neighbors. He is envied of his neighbors. Now, why would this matter of envy come up? Well, the matter of envy arises when people recognize that there is a rivalry or some competition. It could be that there's malice and malignity. You take a man that stays right with the work, or a woman that stays right with the work. My wife and I have been married 37 years. I don't ever plan to be married to anybody else but my wife. I appreciate my wife. She's been a good and godly and faithful companion. She is exactly what I needed in the course of my life. And God graciously and mercifully provided her to me to be my help meet, a help meet for me. And I hope to be married to my wife 60 years. That's the plan. But you take another man or a woman, and after 30 years, they've been divorced and remarried 3 or 4 different times. Now, they look upon those of you that have been married a long time, and they have some envy. You take a man that's faithful on his job. I mean, he punches the clock. He's there. He does the best he can. He grows with the business. He stays there for 40 years, and there's somebody else comes along, and this is the 4th or 5th job they have had. The 4th or 5th job they have had. And they look with some envy. There is some malice or some malignity. There's a feeling of uneasiness that comes from the superiority of somebody else. You ever been around somebody and they were better at whatever it was you were trying to do than you were? And they were better. Well, they might be better because they have some natural ability that you don't have, but they might be better just because they've given themselves to practicing, and they have striven to improve themselves. He is envied of his neighbor, those that are around him, those that live near him, those that are familiar with this individual, those that are around him. For this a man is envied of his neighbor. I have run into people and they didn't care, so they didn't want anybody else to care. And if anybody tried to achieve or improve or advance themselves, they'd be pulled down and pulled back by those around them. Now, my time has gotten away from me on the program today, but by the grace of God and your good listenership, I plan to be back with you again on the Bright Spot Hour tomorrow. May God richly bless each of you.